Hi everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I make videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We're in week 7 of our Pick of the Pots project for this year. Each week I pick from 3 pots, one has colours in it, the other has shapes and the third has stitches, and we create a piece of textile art inspired by those picks. Thank you for all the likes and comments that you've been sharing over the last 6 weeks. I appreciate your support so much. And don't forget that if you have a stitchy friend or someone that would like to get started with embroidery, you can share the video by just clicking on the paper aeroplane icon just below this frame. I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to head into my studio and let's get picking. Okay, we're in week 7. It's time for a new pick, so let's dig in. Oh, better start the timer. So I always start the clock so you can see there are no edits in this little bit. So I'm just going to dig into the pot and pick our colour, which is, oh, sky. Right, so we can interpret that however you like. And let's pick out a shape. Our shape is, oh, that's perfect. I've already got an idea. I wonder if you're thinking what I'm thinking. Sky, a semicircle. Oh, we're going to have a brilliant time with this one. Oh, please let it be a good stitch. And we've got a colonial knot. Yay! That couldn't have been a better combination. So let's clear the pots. We have got sky, semicircle and colonial knot. I cannot wait to get started on this one. I'm going to gather some bits and pieces and then we're going to make something wonderful, hopefully. I'll demonstrate the knot first and then we'll get on with it. So give me a minute and I'll be back. Right, I'm going to demonstrate the stitch. This one's going to be really quick to demonstrate, so I'll show you a few times just so that you get the idea, and I'll show you a couple of ways that you can make the stitch to achieve different effects. So let's come in really close. I've just got some pearl cotton here, I've got blue, and we are going to come up from the back of our fabric and pull through. Now this is kind of a two-hand stitch, so I'm going to do a little bit of manoeuvring. If you want to practice in a hoop, I tend to tuck my ring finger around the back of the hoop so that I can grip the thread with my thumb and forefinger, and obviously I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed this is all reverse. So to make this stitch we are going to keep tension on the thread, and that's really important. So a good starting point to practice is to just wrap your needle, sit your needle on the thread, wrap the thread over the top a couple of times, and you want to practice keeping your tension right. You should be able to slide your needle up and down the thread without it looping too much. So you don't want to pull it so tight that you can't move your needle. You don't want to hold it so loose that it distorts. You want to just hold it tight enough that you can slide your needle up and down like that. So it's a really useful thing to practice. It's useful for lots and lots of stitches. Colonial knots are a bit like French knots if you're familiar with those, but they have an extra step. So we're going to start with our thread through the fabric and we're going to hold it towards ourselves so that it's nice and taut. We don't want it tight, and we definitely don't want to pull so tight that we pull the knot that's securing our thread through to the back. Then I'm going to sit my needle parallel with the thread on the right hand side, and we're going to scoop our thread up. So I'm going to hop over the thread take my needle underneath it and scoop the thread up like that. So I'll show you that again. Start parallel, over, scoop and up. So we've got our thread twisted around the needle. Now I like to just put my finger on that just to hold it in place, and then we're going to work with this bit of working thread here, and I'm going to wrap that thread over the needle twice, and this is where we want our tension. So I'm going to pull that tight so that it sits snug against the needle. I can put my finger on it again, and I'm going to take my needle back down just slightly away from where the thread came up through the fabric, and we want to pull on that working thread until the loops sit on the fabric nice and snug like that. And we're going to keep hold of that working thread, keep it under tension, and pull our needle all the way through to the back, and we get this little raised knot that sits proud of the surface. It's sometimes called a figure 8 knot, and if you look really closely at it, it's like a little cup. It's got little lobes on it. So I'll show you that again. I'll do it a little bit faster so that you can see the motion. So I'm going to hold my thread, scoop with my needle, wrap over the top, poke back down through the fabric and pull those wraps so that they sit snug on the surface, then pull through. So the key with this, just like so many other knots, is the tension on the thread. So lots of people find knots really challenging, and the step they miss out is keeping this working thread taut. So hop over the thread and scoop, wrap through the fabric slightly away from where it came out, pull on the working thread until the wraps slide down the needle and sit on the surface. Keep tension on that thread until the last minute, and you'll get really neat knots every time. So that's the colonial knot. Shall I show you once more? Why not? So scoop the thread, wrap down through the fabric, pull to tighten, keep hold of that working thread and pull through like that. Now you can make this knot look different by missing out one of those steps, and that is the pulling taut. So if I just bring my thread through, I do exactly the same steps. So hop over and scoop. I'm going to wrap twice. Let's wrap a few times. So I've wrapped 4 times there. And I'm going to take the point of my needle down, but I'm not going to pull on that working thread. So you can see those wraps there are all higgledy-piggledy and loose. So I'm not going to hold that thread under tension. I'm going to pull through, and we get a nice chunky loopy knot. That one's not as loopy as it could be. So I'm going to just do that again. It helps if you do it at speed. So because I'm slowing the process down to show you, I'm not quite getting the same effect. So if I pull through, that one's a little bit better. So these wraps are a lot looser, and you get these loopy bits that stand proud. So when I pull through, hopefully you can see there's a loop there that isn't pulled quite tight. Now, if you were wanting a really precise knot, you would see that as a bit of a mistake, but we're actually going to make use of this texture today. You don't have to have everything really neat and tight. So in traditional embroidery, this is the knot that you'd be aiming at, but we are doing more like slow stitch embroidery where the rules aren't as tight and you can play around. So technically you shouldn't ever do more than 2 wraps, but I've done 4 here and 3 here, and we're deliberately trying to create a different look to our knot. So have a practice, have a play, see what effects you can create, and yeah, just get used to making the stitch. So I'm going to gather my bits and pieces and then we'll create something. I've got a great idea for this one. I hope you're going to like it. Brilliant. Right, now you can do this in lots of ways. I've got some felt. I love this because of this sort of white marl in it. I think this is known as heathered felt with flecks of other colours through it, and it just looks like sky to me. It looks like wisps of cloud. I love it. So that's my background felt. I've put my frame on, and these are our prompts. So sky, colonial knot and semicircle, and this one couldn't have been more perfect. I had an idea immediately. I hope you like it. I'm going to be working landscape today, so the minute I show you my starting colour, you're going to get the idea, I think. So let's just move that out of the way. I'm going to start with some red felt, and I've got a circle template, and these are really useful because they have the halfway points marked on them. And so what I'm going to do is line up those halfway points with the edge of my felt, and I've immediately got a semicircle. So I'm just going to use my heat erase pen to mark that semicircle in, and then I can just cut that out. So I've got my straight edge and my semicircle, and I'm going to cut out 7 colours. I wonder if you can guess where we're heading. So here we go. We've got a red semicircle, an orange semicircle. I'm using felt, but you could do this with fabrics nice and easily, and you can use Bondo web if you want. I'm just going to use stitch. So I'm going to lay it out first just so that you get the idea. I've got yellow. I've just used my template. This one's really handy. There are 7 circles into it, and they just drop by a couple of millimetres in diameter each time. So I've literally just worked my way around the template and cut out semicircles accordingly. So then I've got a green semicircle. This is going to have a bit of height to it. So it's going to stick up in my book a little bit. And then an indigo one and violet. Now, if you want to, you can trim them so that they are all sitting inside that red semicircle, but my hesitation with that is that they're not then going to be semicircles, they're going to be partial circles. So I think I'm going to lay it out a bit like that. So I'm making a rainbow because that's the most obvious semicircle that appears in the sky to me. But I'm going to start by tacking these down with some running stitch. So I'm only going to stitch along this curved edge. So I'll just show you how I'm going to go about that. So let's get a pin. You could use fabric glue for this if you want to. Just want to make sure it's nice and central. Pop a pin in, and I've got some nice red thread. You can use whatever thread you like, really. I'm going to start with my running stitch, and we'll bring in the colonial knots in a moment. So I'm just going to stitch around to the edge. Another way you could do this is to needle felt it. So if you've got a felting needle, if you're using felt on felt, you can just stab at this a few times and the red felt will combine with the background. So you can felt them together if you feel like having a go at that. I want to stay fairly close to the edge because I want the stitches to show in the space before the orange semicircle starts. And you could do white thread on all of them if you wanted to. That way your stitches would stand out a little bit more, or you could do colonial knots in a little ring around, but I'm going to use the colonial knots in a slightly different way. We'll come to that shortly. So I'm sure there are going to be some great ideas coming up this week, and you can interpret sky in whatever way you like. So I've gone for a sky blue with this wispy white fibre in it that looks a bit like cloud. But you could do a night sky if you wanted to. You could do a cloudy sky. You could do an aurora borealis if you want to. Entirely up to you. So I'm not going to worry about this bottom edge because by the time I've put all my other colours on, that will be nice and secure. So I'm going to finish off my thread, and I will just repeat that process with all 7 of my colours. So these will overlap a little bit at the bottom, like that, so that it's obvious that they are semicircles, and we'll just work our way down. So I'm going to do that. I won't bore you with just lots of lines of running stitch, but I'll do that and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, here we go. That's my semicircles on, and quite like how you can see that they're semicircles because the edges are still there, but as I say, you could, if you wanted to, cut them off so that they will even up and have more of a rainbow. I've been busy cutting out some more semicircles, and I've done this in white and grey. A couple of these have got bond web on the back, and I just wanted to make some cloud formations at the bottom. So I'm just going to lay these out and give you an idea of what I'm going to do. So I've got different shades of white and a few grey ones in there. The white might not pick up particularly well, the different shades, but I've got all sorts of different sizes of semicircles here, and I'm going to stitch them on and fill in the gaps with some colonial knots so that we create some clouds. They have got some heat erase pen on the edges, but I will iron those away. So we're just going to sort of dot around the edges of the rainbow like that to make some cloud shapes and just build them up like that. So this is actually a really simple one. That's the kind of look I'm going for. So let's start with this one. I've got some white thread. This is a crochet cotton, but a perlé would do. I wanted something a bit thicker, any thicker thread. You could even do this with wool if you wanted to. So I'm just going to get my first one in there and come through and hold my thread, scoop underneath, over the top a couple of times. So scoop underneath, over the top a couple of times, and back through, and like I showed you earlier, if you don't pull the wraps tight, you end up with a lovely sort of textured knot rather than a really tight one. So some of my knots will be tight, some of them will be more loopy, and I've got some grey threads as well, just stranded cotton, and I'll mix some of those in. So these colonial knots are going to add some texture to the clouds as well. So I'll just put enough on to make them secure, and then I'll come back in and add some more knots into the spaces and make it look nice and fluffy. So there's one. They have got bonder web because they're offcuts from other projects, but I'm not going to worry about pressing them down. I want some movement, so I'm just going to leave them loose. But you could bonder web the whole thing if you wanted to. And I'm placing the colonial knots at different points on the semicircles so that it doesn't look too regular and even. Like that. So you get the idea. I'm going to add those and then I'll come back and fill in the gaps with some more knots. Okay, there's my clouds on. I'm really loving this. Having a great time this week. So I've just got 2 strands of grey stranded cotton, and I'm just going to go to town in the spaces, and I'm not going to worry about the gaps. I'm not going to worry about making all of my knots even or how many wraps I'm doing. I'm just going to stitch colonial knots, and you can do as many of these as you like. I might come in with some extra white as well, but we're just going to build up that cloudy sort of effect in the foreground. And then we'll be done. So this will take a little bit of time. The rest has been fairly quick, but anything involving lots of knots takes a little while, so you can do as many of these as you like. As soon as you are happy with the way it's looking, you can call it quits. So I hope everybody's well. I am recording this well ahead of time because I am busy at Textiles East this week in St Ives in Cambridgeshire. So if you are popping in to say hi, I'm really looking forward to seeing your pick of the pots or your postcards if you're following Postcards from the Hedge over on Ko-fi. If you have done other Winging It projects, I'm really hoping you're going to bring them along. So yeah, so we're launching our brand new kit there, and it is available to back order if you are interested. So this is our first ever landscape kit, and it's couldn't be more appropriate that our prompt was sky this week, because these kits have got hand painted sky panels in them. So they are slow stitch landscapes with an animal. It's the start of another seasonal series. So these are slow stitch landscapes. They're all going to feature animals, and this one is inspired by winter. So I know we're heading towards spring. I wanted to launch this one at Textiles East because I've got another one in the making to release in Exeter in March. So if you are in the southwest of England and are planning to go along to West Point Arena for Craft for Crafters, we will be there, hopefully with our spring landscape as well. So this one features hares. There are two options for this one. I've got one that is dawn, and that is sort of lilacs and yellows. And then we've got a midnight version as well, which is inspired by the Northern Lights and is in shades of blue. So really excited to launch those kits, hoping they're going to be very popular. And if you want to get your hands on them, they are on our website on back order, shipped out week beginning the 24th of February. In April, we're going to be in 2 locations. So we've got a local show in Lincoln, Craftorama, at the Lincolnshire Showground. That's on the 27th of April. But we're also going to be at the Wetherby Quilt Show. And I'll put the dates up for that as well. So we are really looking forward to those. So because I now am not a teacher, I'm a lot freer to go around the country and go to different shows and meet more people. So I will keep you posted on where I'm going to be, because I know there are people from all over the UK that watch these videos and that are joining in. So yeah, we're going to be in lots of different places. So I think we're coming to Malvern as well. Can't remember when that is, maybe May. We're going to be in Spalding in Lincolnshire, and we're going to Doncaster as well in October. Spalding, I think, is June, and then Doncaster is October. We're in Newmarket in October or September. October, I think it is. I can't remember. There's so many shows that we're going to be at. So and we're back at the NEC again in November as well. So there's loads and loads of shows coming up this year, and really excited about them. I think shows were always felt a bit trepidatious about shows in the past, because they were few and far between for me, but I'm really getting into my stride now, now that we're doing them a lot. I do say very often that I am really, really an introvert. I don't find it easy to sort of do things out in the world and be public. And I know that seems a strange thing to say, because I was a teacher for 20 years, which involves being effectively in front of an audience, and I do YouTube as well. So but actually having human beings there in front of me, I find really nerve-wracking, but I'm getting better at it. I think I'm getting used to it, and yeah, I find it all quite exciting. So, yeah, honestly, bring your stitching along, because I would absolutely love to see it. It's never quite the same seeing photos as it is when you see things in real life. So I really enjoy seeing what you've done. So yeah, here's hoping for some good shows this year, and maybe meeting loads and loads of you. So it's busy old time. We've also got workshop dates. We've added in some more workshop dates. So you can also, I'll put a link in the description to our workshops page as well. So if you want to come for an in-person workshop, you can book in online. I think the next one is coming up very soon, 25th of February. That's a landscape workshop. And then we've got a brand new workshop this year, which is the slow stitch scroll. That's going to be a lovely, peaceful day. of gentle stitching, and that's suitable for all levels. So if you are just starting with embroidery, it's perfect for you. I think I'm going to stop fairly soon because you can overcook it, can't you? And I think we've got loads of colonial knots on here now. We've got loads of semicircles. This is, if anyone thought I was cheating last week with my limited use of the square, I've been utterly true to the brief this week. So hardly done anything other than semicircles and colonial knots, so just a bit of running stitch. I think I'm going to running stitch my border. Let's do it in white. As it's in my needle, so I'm just going to scoot round this with running stitch, iron away the pen marks, and then I'll be back to show you the finished piece. Okay, here's our finished piece. I love this one. I think it's my favourite so far. Just what a lot of fun to be had with a colonial knot and some semicircles. Just really happy with it. So obviously we have worked landscape, so it is going to be sideways on the page. I don't mind if you don't. Couldn't find my glue then. So I'm going to glue the page to stick it in. It's a bit of a chunky one, this one. And it is the 16th of February 25. So we've got a date on it as well, and we can stick in our prompts. So we had sky, semicircle. It's getting chunky, this book. I'm glad they came in packs of 2, because I think we're only going to have half a year in this one. I need to do a couple of flat ones, but we are beholden to our prompts, so we'll have to see how it goes. So there we go, sky, semicircle and colonial knot, and that's what we've made. I cannot wait to see what you create with these prompts. Feel free to do this or something completely different. Do share either in the private Facebook group, there's a link in the description below, and if you're sharing on Instagram, use hashtag FSHWingingIt2025. Don't forget to tag me at Featherstitch House, and that way I'm much more likely to see your work. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back next week with another set of prompts. Happy stitching, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.